Milwaukee Brewers owner Mark Attanasio made some comments yesterday, and one of those was about competing for World Series championships that rankled some Brewer fans out there, a lot of Brewers fans. But was he misquoted and maybe taken out of context? We'll address that coming up next here on this edition of Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are barely into the start of camp. We're about a week in, but players, pitchers and catchers reported last week. So the players started rolling in, and now we got the full squad workouts ready to go. And when camp opens up like this, Pat Murphy, the manager, and Mark Attanasio always address the team. Mark Attanasio showed up down in Phoenix yesterday, also met with members of the media as well to talk about a few things, including Bob Nightingale from the USA Today. Now, in an article that was printed late last night, there was an excerpt in that article. The article is about, well, the Brewers refusing to spend any money, which is true. That part is true. And there was a quote in that article from Mark Attanasio said, "Is it my job to win a World Series or to provide summer entertainment to fans in a way to keep to bring families together?" And that comment was taken by Brewers fans like, well, he just wants to provide maybe like a Summerfest attitude. So everybody comes down here, enjoys themselves, has a good time with the family, little family bonding. And whether the Brewers win or lose is another story. So there has been people who've come back and said, well, Mark Attanasio's comments were taken out of place. His son has said that. And there's even been a couple of media members who were there who've come out and spoken that, yeah, what he said was just part of a longer statement. And of course, in the media, and this could be done in radio, TV, or print, that a player or coach, or in this case, an owner, could make a long statement, and you could take a short part of it and turn it into a big thing, depending on what part of it you take. And in this case, Attanasio made a long statement, and only a part of it about, is it my job to win a World Series or to provide entertainment and for families to come together? That was put in the article, and Brewer fans are upset about that. And then Mike Attanasio comes along, and he's the son. He puts out on Twitter today, short time ago, he said, he, referring to his dad, was entirely misquoted. I was sitting in the room. The goal is always to win a World Series, but it's important as the steward of the franchise to provide a summer of passion and excitement for fans so they don't lose a generation of fans like some other teams have. Like some other teams do when you have a long rebuild. We always want to be competitive to avoid that. Very frustrating to see what the writer posted, which completely was not in the spirit of the comments that were made. I have to believe that some of it was true in a sense where Mark Attanasio, he wants to win a World Series. Of course he wants, and he's got a competitive fire. There's no doubt about it. But given the platform of Major League Baseball and the financial situation that he is in, well, he's unable to play on an even keel. And he went on to talk about that. And yeah, we can't spend like the Dodgers and all that. We can't do certain things. We can't do certain things on this team. He said, my payroll is actually going up to about $5 million. But he says the bump up on revenue that they got in this offseason or last year was $2.5 million. He says, now Attanasio says they're struggling to break even. That's what he says. Obviously, the Brewers are never going to show us the books. They are not going to show us the books and show exactly if that's right or not. So we got to take Attanasio at his word here, that when he says, we're struggling to break even. Well, we got to believe him, I guess, or choose not to believe him, whatever. But this is what he's telling us. And when he says that, they received $2.5 million for getting into the wild card last year, and when he comes out and says, well, our job is to get all the fans together and the families and provide good entertainment. Yes, but isn't that part of winning? The Brewers in the 90s, that was not entertaining baseball. In the mid-90s, was not entertaining baseball. And say what you want, it wasn't for fun for fans to come out and to create that next generation. My kid is 13 years old, okay? And he likes going to games to see the other teams. He likes to see a Vlad Guerrero and the other players, and the Dodgers come to town. He hasn't bought in on the Milwaukee Brewers, even though the Brewers have been in the regular season one of the more successful teams in the last 10 years. You look at their record, they have been successful. Now, they've busted out in the postseason in the last 5 years in the first round. So successful, winning, yes, keeping us tuned in. They have been, because they're winning in the regular season. And there is nothing belittling winning the National League Central. Winning the National League Central, winning a division title is very, very hard. The Brewers went for years without doing that. So, and there's a lot of teams that would love to be in the position the Milwaukee Brewers are in right now. That's competing heavily for the division title. But the route they're going, I feel like they're just holding on for dear life right now as they lose players every year. Is this a Mark Attanasio issue? Is this a baseball issue? Well, it is a baseball issue because there's a lot of teams struggling to compete. And the Brewers, what they've been able to do is something that they weren't able to do in the 90s when the financial situation got away from them a little bit. We saw in the early 90s, and this is going to be funny for some of you new schoolers out there, in 1990, when the first $3 million a year player broke in, and that was Ricky Henderson. He broke through the barrier of making $3 million a year. And then Yount and everybody else followed through, and Yount played with the Brewers. But as it got to be $4 million and $5 million and $6 million, the Brewers couldn't keep up. And it got to be $10 million a year, certainly they couldn't. And 12 and 15, and certainly with guys making $35 million, the Brewers just aren't competing. Their highest paid player, what is it, Yelich, $22 million? I believe that's the case. So the Brewers can't compete, and Attanasio's talked about that. So it is a baseball issue. There's no revenue sharing for the TV package. And Attanasio talked about, well, the NBA's got this, and the NFL, you got this. You got Kansas City and Buffalo playing, two small markets, yet everybody's watching the game. You're not going to get that in baseball. You're not going to get two random teams from small markets. You're not going to watch them on a Sunday night. But that's where baseball is. That is the baseball problem. Football's created itself where on a Thursday night, you're rushing to your TV to watch Amazon Prime or paying for the package because you want to watch those two teams. And let's face it, gambling's got a large portion about it. People gamble on football more than baseball. That's another reason, okay? There's a great interest in football because it's gambling. Hello, if you don't realize that, there is. Not so much in baseball. But when Attanasio, he's got this team, this franchise winning baseball games. He's got them competing and winning division titles. But obviously it's not at a championship level. That belongs to the Dodgers. That belongs to the Yankees. Look who's in the World Series last year. The Dodgers and the Yankees. Houston, always competing for championships. The Brewers aren't competing for championships. And if they were able to spend some money, yeah, you're darn right they would have kept Corbin Burns. Okay? You're darn right they would have kept Willie Adames. Well, maybe not Willie. Maybe they might have let him go if they could even spend it. But they would have kept Corbin Burns and some of these other guys from the past that they've had to trade. So, yeah, they would have definitely, imagine how good the Brewers would be if they were allowed to keep those sort of players. But they can't, and that's a baseball problem. But Mark Attanasio, when he says winning a World Series, is that my job, winning a World Series? Well, you win a World Series, just like the Milwaukee Bucks winning an NBA title in 2021. Now suddenly everybody in the state is interested. Baseball in Wisconsin is a statewide team, but suddenly people in Door County are paying attention to you with the Milwaukee Bucks. And I remember how it was like in 82 and in 2018 when the Brewers had a legit shot at winning a World Series championship. Fans were excited in this state. Everywhere you went, people were wearing Brewers jerseys, Brewers hats. You went to the airport, they were wearing Brewers clothes, competing for a World Series championship and winning playoff games. Your team, yes, it's great that they won 93 games, but you compete for a World Series championship. Your level of intensity and fan interest and family bonding takes it up a couple of extra notches in this state. Had they beat the Mets last year and advanced to the next round, or were taking on the Dodgers, or had they won their playoff series, let's say against the Braves in 2021, they win that playoff series, and now you're talking. You get to the NLCS, you get a whole lot more attention. So yes, on one hand, your goal is to win a World Series championship. Yes, it is. And with that, competing for World's titles, you are going to get fans involved. And there's going to be that fan. Sure, if you win your 87 games, and I'm not sneezing at that at all, fans are going to come to the ballpark. My kid is interested in going, not to see the Brewers, but to see other teams. Because he always thinks, well, you know what? At the end of the day, we're not going to win a World Series title anyway. But he's fascinated by those teams that can, those great players, and the things that the Brewers can't have nice things. In that next generation, the 13-year-old, my kid will say, well, geez, yeah, the Brewers get a great player like a Jackson Chourio, but I know he's not going to be here in the long run. Adames, I want to fall in love with Adames, but last year I knew the whole season. Well, he's hitting the big 3-run home runs and all that, but I know in the back of my mind he's gone. And in that generation in their 20s who grew up with the Prince Fielders, you knew that he was going to be gone. And CeCe Sabathia, rent the player, was 2008. You knew he was going to be gone. Ryan Braun, we thought he was going to be gone. The Brewers chose to sign him. Yelich, the Brewers chose to sign him, but they couldn't keep them all. And I think, you win, you keep a few more of those players, then who knows? Now, the Prince Fielder, he ended up, obviously hurting his neck, and he left here and never was the same again. But you would have to trade Josh Hader. Have him stick around a little bit more. And you have Hader, Williams in that bullpen as a 1-2 punch. Who knows? Maybe Josh Hader closes out that game for you last year against the Mets. You don't know. But the point is, World Series competing for not necessarily titles, but titles, yes. Winning a World Series does so much for your franchise, just like winning an NBA title did for the Milwaukee Bucks at a small market. All right, we'll come back, read some comments from the fan base out there. You guys out there are the great fans. But Mike Attanasio says Mark Attanasio was totally misquoted. The whole concept, and I could read the whole concept of that article, but go to Twitter, it's on there. And there's a few other guys out there who were at that press conference that could tell you that they've written in their Twitter account about what was actually said around those comments about Attanasio talking about, am I here to win a World Series or to provide entertainment for the fans, which basically is what he said. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Good to have you along. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers. This show is brought to you in part by Wonderful Pistachios. There we go. Wonderful Pistachios. I love pistachios. I love mixing them up in yogurt. After I get a good workout in, your boy's trying to lose some weight, get in better shape, just get in better shape for golf season and all that. And I love pistachios. Pistachios, one of the highest protein nuts out there. Each 1 ounce serves 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of the daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats, which help you keep feeling fuller longer. You eat those and you're going to feel full. You're not going to keep on running back to the refrigerator. So I eat that. I put them in some yogurt after I get done working out, and I have that for breakfast or lunch. I love the no shells variety. Perfect grab and go snack for these busy days when you're on the run. So, wonderful pistachios. Pick them up. A complete protein providing all 9 essential amino acids. And then no shells, wonderful pistachios. Good for that grab and go ease. The satisfying crack of opening each shell, like a snack meditation. Whether you're running between meetings, dropping off the kids, wonderful pistachios. They are a great afternoon snack. And a snack at night, snack at any time to get you going. So get snacking, get cracking with a healthy treat, the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com, wonderfulpistachios.com. And I'm telling you, they will give you a little bit of energy as well. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers. Good to have you along on Locked On Brewers here on a Wednesday. And by the way, you get our podcasts on Google, Spotify, Apple, wherever you download your daily podcasts, whatever you listen to, we're there. We're the #1 Brewers podcast on the internet. Because of you great Brewers fans out there following us along, we drop daily here on Locked On Brewers, giving you all the news and what fans are talking about with the Milwaukee Brewers. And of course, our growing YouTube page, search Locked On Brewers, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. That'll alert you every time we drop an episode here on Locked On Brewers. And of course, some of you guys have DM'd me on Twitter, which I love, man, because I always get back to you. I will always get back to you. You could hit me up on Twitter anytime. I may not get back with you that second if I don't see it, but I will certainly get back to you very soon. And that's my Twitter account, Chuck Freeman, FREIMUND. All right, so some of you comments out there, Brian says they need more external revenue. Opening a new restaurant or fan experience at the stadium is relevant. Well, the new they're talking about possibly building something outside the ballpark. And we'll see. I don't know what kind of revenue stream that would provide, but I would guess some. I think what baseball needs, obviously, the salary cap would help, but sharing the TV revenue. Would owners be willing in the future to share TV revenue? It's going to be interesting when that current bargaining agreement expires, what direction the owners go. The players, they have a hard stance against the salary cap. Drew says, kind of surprised Arnold isn't shopping Frelick and some younger players to get that third baseman. I wonder what Frelick's market value is out there. And we talked yesterday about him putting on the 25 pounds. Ghost Runner says, as long as the pitching comes through, the Brewers should be okay. And that's true. Larry says, lucky Larry, misery Mark, no Spendacio. I haven't heard that one. No Spendacio, not Attanasio. Spendacio. Mr. JD says, the way the Brewers are going about not spending a little more on pitching will catch up to them. Can go to the well, and I hope these guys work out so many times. Yeah, that go to the well, signing somebody, hoping it works out. And yes, the Brewers are talented, nice young talent, but veteran pitching is more important for a reason. They spent $900,000 in free agent for one player. $900,000 for one player. What else here? Robert says, the old saying, money talks and blank walks. Brewers need to talk. They're going to be good, but they're not built for the playoffs. This is why you need to add payroll to be built for the playoffs. Yep, I agree. They need to add the payroll. And Attanasio says, well, our payroll's up $5 million. Well, really? I mean, if it's $99 million, if it's $104 million, it's still, I don't know. He says it's up $5 million, but whatever the case is, it's not enough. It's not enough. And I'm agreeing with not spending the money for Willie Adames. But your third base issue seems to be a problem right now. At least that's the way I see it right now. And Attanasio did say Ortiz was playing shortstop, so all you guys out there who think that Terang was possibly moving to short, Attanasio kind of broke the news yesterday that Ortiz was moving to short, which is a good thing. I mean, why ruin a good thing with Terang over at second doing great things? Yeah. More comments about Attanasio. Yeah, you all were irked. One other comment here from the Jock says that Mark is the third poorest owner in MLB. He's the modern day Bud Selig, except he's made better choices with GMs. He's got a shoestring budget without the money to go all in as needed. I mean, do we take Mark Attanasio for his word here? Do we? Or do we look at the Brewers and say, well, Mark Attanasio is just like Bud Selig. He's not spending any money, and maybe because he can't. I mean, Bud Selig wouldn't spend $3 million on Paul Molitor, who was one of the best hitters in baseball, to keep him in 1992. That's equivalent to what? Not giving $15 million to a player today? Is that what about it is? Or not? Probably more than that. Probably not giving $30 million for a player back in 92. That's the way the salaries, not the equivalent of the dollar, but the equivalent of how the salaries have escalated. So who do we believe? Mark Attanasio. He probably shouldn't have come out and said, is my job winning a World Series or providing entertainment to families? Because he says that leaves a lot of interpretation out there for fans. If he went back, he probably wish he hadn't said it. And that's why some of these guys don't like talking to the media, because their stuff gets taken out of contents or not meant for it. Obviously, Mark Attanasio wants to win. All right. And the Attanasios are coming out and saying what was in the Nightingale article isn't the full truth, or he was misquoted. Too late now. The horses are out and the fans are running with it. All right. The Brewers, manager Murphy paid tribute to Bob Uecker today. And Attanasio, he did say something that in that meeting yesterday with the media that did irk me more so than the World Series. The World Series article irked me at first. Then when I read further into it, not so much, although I don't know why he really said that. We'll get to that coming up next. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers. Locked On Brewers, thanks for making us your first listen to every day here on Locked On Brewers. Mark Attanasio went on to say he said Milwaukee is a destination for mid-markets. I disagree. I think once players get here, they love playing here. You got great houses, great Brewer fans here. Milwaukee is a terrific city. Okay, it's got its issues, but it's still a terrific city. Wisconsin's a great state. Yeah, we don't like when it gets down to 10 below zero, but Wisconsin, I lived here my entire life. It is a great state. And players who do come here in the summer, they say, yeah, they do. Like there were several players who never wanted to be traded here, but once they got here or they signed here and they thought, oh, okay, they came here thinking, and I'm not going to name the players. I'm not going to out the players, but I know there's players who've signed here just looking for a paycheck. They sign here because they wanted to, nobody else. They had no other options. So they reluctantly came to Milwaukee and played for the Brewers. But when they got here, they actually liked it. I can tell you, K-Rod did not want to, he was upset when he was leaving New York. He did not want to leave the mess when he was traded when the Brewers traded for him in 2011, but he got here and he liked it. He actually liked it. And there's a lot of guys like that. But for Mark Attanasio to say it's a destination for middle markets. No team, no player says, I want to be in Milwaukee. And that's just the way it is for whatever reason. That stigma about Milwaukee, I don't know. But once guys get here, they do love it. And the Brewers have pretty good chemistry in that clubhouse, and it's created by management. And Mark Attanasio does create a good atmosphere for these guys. I will say that. Pat Murphy addressed the team, gave him a fiery speech, talked about the presence of Bob Uecker. If you go to Twitter and you see Mark Murphy's speech, Pat Murphy's speech, yeah, you can see where players want to run through a wall. And I think that means something. When you got a manager like that, he means more extra wins. And the Brewers need every bit of that to win this division again this year. Murphy called the Brewers an organization of opportunity. An organization of opportunity. And I couldn't agree more. That's going to do it. Locked On Brewers. My name is Chuck Freeman. Thanks for making us your first listen to every day. For your second listen, go to my guy Sully on Locked On MLB, and he will give you all the lowdown on what's going on in spring training and what's going on here in the off season as we lead down to opening day. That's Locked On MLB. See you tomorrow, everybody. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day.